Welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman, a podcast loaded with practical tips, powerful scripts, personal stories, and simple steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. So get ready to get the information you need to make the impact you want from someone you trust, your friend, parenting expert, Dr. Robyn Silverman.
Well, guess what? Kidversation cards are now on sale. So exciting. And there are all kinds of bonuses that you can get. And I just want you to realize how important it is to be talking to kids, even at a very young age. I got the best message the other day from a parent who's using the Kidversation cards with their children. My Kidversation cards have a powerful word. There's a definition on the front and a question on the front, and then a 4-step flow on how to use that powerful word in action on the back. So this parent that sent me a message, she said that her son was starting a new martial arts class and was super nervous. He was really nervous about starting this class. He actually pulled out the courage card and was holding it the entire way to the martial arts class in the car. When they got to the class, they had discussed the powerful word. They had discussed how he could use courage in class. By the time we got to that class, he was ready to go in. I was like, this is like the best story. Thank you so much, because if you don't tell me, I don't know. And I want to hear your story. So please send me these incredible stories. I love hearing them. And if you're looking for a pack of Kidversation cards and you want to be able to use them in your own home, or you want to send them to a teacher or a babysitter or a coach, please visit kidversationcards.com. So when discipline feels exhausting all the time, confusing, disconnected from the kind of relationship that you would like to have with a child, it's often a sign that parents need a new framework, one that's rooted in connection, brain science, and compassion rather than in control. In this episode, we're talking about how story teaching, play, and emotional awareness can transform behavior while strengthening attachment and trust. We'll explore how parents can support highly sensitive and strong-willed children, repair moments that don't go as planned, and bring peace and joy into everyday family life. Who doesn't want that without sacrificing boundaries or expectations? Sarah R. Moore is the certified parenting master trainer, author, and mom who supports families in growing peace, connection, and joy together. She is the author of Peaceful Discipline, Story Teaching, Brain Science, and Better Behavior. If you're looking on YouTube, holding up the book right now, a highly endorsed book that blends connection-based parenting, trauma-informed practices, and neuroscience to help parents guide behavior with empathy, playfulness, and respect. Sarah's work focuses on supporting highly sensitive and strong-willed children while helping parents communicate effectively, build secure attachment, and learn to be kinder to themselves along the parenting journey. Welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything.
Thank you. I just appreciate you so much, and I love the work that you do. And I feel like if I had one wish right now, it would be to have an extra long arm to grab my Kidversation cards off island right now and bring them in. We love them in our family, so I just want to do an extra plug for those right away.
Thank you so much. I super appreciate that. And I can't wait to hear your stories about them. It's honestly, if I don't hear them, I don't know. And I love the stories. It really tickled me about that parent with their child holding the card on the way to practice that day. That's just the cutest. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you for your buffalo, something about you that most people don't know, like a little known secret about something you love to do or something you did in your life that tells us something special about you. I'll go first so you can think for a moment. I used to perform in musical theater, and it was so much fun. I love to sing, playing roles like the wicked stepsister in Cinderella or Rosie in Bye Bye Birdie. It let me break out of my norm of being like a child development specialist or a doctoral student in child development at the time when I first started getting back into it, and play a really fun character. So that's my little known fact. What about you?
I love that so much. And the more we talk, the more I find out we have in common. So
Ooh,
let me just leave that there. What came up for me is, even though I do talk a little bit about this in the book and elsewhere, part of my fun training, because yeah, neuroscience is great, but we're real people. We need fun too. So I went to and graduated from improv comedy school while
wow.
busy
Yeah.
working full time in a very serious, very corporate job. And I needed to play. And that was actually some of my best parenting training. And I have learned more and more over the years just how much I need play and levity in my life, to the point where we moved into this house 2 years ago. We have a formal dining room that we didn't know what to do with for the longest time, because we have the living room where we hang out. And for the holidays this year, we put a ping pong table in there. We're like, who
Wow.
needs fancy couches? Like, we want to play. So anybody who wants to come, except for it's not actually so much ping pong, it's hardwood floors. So it's more a game of like dodgeball most of the time. Fun, gotta play, and it's very much a part of me.
I love that. Thank you for telling me that. And it really does help to illuminate why you are such a good storyteller. Anybody who reads Peaceful Discipline, you'll see that there are stories throughout, but also towards the end, there's a whole slew of them. And it helps us to be able to explain to kids different things that they need to do, different behaviors that they need to exhibit, why certain things are the way they are, why we need to brush our teeth, and, and personifying so many different things. So I just love that. Let's get a baseline before we begin. Can you tell us what is peaceful discipline, like how it works, and illustrate with an example of what does not show peaceful discipline versus what does show peaceful discipline with an issue like, grocery store frustrations, restaurant issue? What is this?
Yeah, I love this question. So, first shift is that we have to move away from thinking discipline means punishment, and instead to discipline means to teach. If we look at the word disciple, a disciple is a student. It's someone who says, I want to learn from this teacher or this master or whoever. If we want to be a teacher to our child where they want to follow us, we have to teach in a way that does a couple of things. The first of which is it has to land peacefully. So rather than calling it peaceful discipline, I could have called it peaceful teaching, but that
Mm,
doesn't flow as well. So we have to remember that it has to land peacefully for the child so that they actually want to learn from us, want to be like us, want to do the things that we do in life, because they say, I really like that person. I want to be
mm,
like them when I'm an adult. It also has to feel peaceful in our body. This means it's not about shoving down my emotions and, putting on a smile when I'm really seething inside. I actually want it to feel peaceful in my own body, because I know
mm.
this is a relationship, and I want to go to bed at night feeling good about the way I parented, rather than operating from a place of shame and guilt and all these things that we carry around so often as parents. And last but not least, I talk about this as kind of being the third tenet of peaceful discipline, particularly for those of us who were not raised in a home where operating this way was the norm. Part of our inner child gets to heal along the way, because when we behave in a peaceful manner toward our child and it works and the child feels connected, part of our inner child also gets to learn, I deserve that all along too. And
Mm,
along with the people who are physically in the room. So that's part one of your question. Part two is people often mistake, and going back to kind of the definition, discipline for punishment. So they often think that if it's in the grocery store or the restaurant or whatever, if I'm just calm but punish my kid. For example, well, tell you what, I'm not going to get upset about this. Just give me your electronics. I'm locking them up for the next week. But I handled it peacefully, as in I
mhm.
didn't yell. That's not peaceful discipline. That's still a punishment in disguise, and it's going to do nothing for the relationship. So we have to figure out, instead, how can I get to the root cause of whatever the issue is? Using the example that you threw out there, let's say it's honestly grocery store or a restaurant. If I have a child who is starting to get pretty squirrely or acting out or getting loud in a place where it's not really appropriate, can I get curious about what's going on for them? Is this sensory overload? Am I distracted if I'm in a restaurant and talking to all the other adults and the child is just getting bored and getting more desperate to be seen? Is the
Mm,
child legitimately hungry because they're surrounded by food and nobody's fed them yet? What's going on? Because when I can get curious rather than critical, I reframe the entire way that I respond, and responding with something like, hey, I'm curious if you're hungry. How about a little snack? And that might be all the child needs for their entire trajectory of their behavior to shift, but it comes from a peaceful place of curiosity and understanding rather than just trying to slap a band-aid on behavior
mm,
without getting to the root cause. How does that work
mm.
for you, my friend?
That's super helpful, actually. But I can hear people saying, well, does that just mean there's no boundaries here? Like we're just going to let our child act up? And what if I need to talk to these people at the table? Maybe they're my parents, my grandparents, like my husband or wives' uh, colleagues. And this is what has to happen. We're just going to let our kid run amok. Like, what do you say to that?
I love that question so much because it is a really common misperception. They think, oh, it'll never work. My kid needs a firmer hand in these situations. I'm going to say one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they think about authoritative parenting, not authoritarian. Authoritarian is my way or the highway, and it's
Hmm.
associated with punishments, but authoritative parenting is often known as firm but kind. And the problem that I sometimes have with that language is that people focus too heavily on the firm part and forget about the kind part. So I reframe that as clear and compassionate. That way we know we can be clear. We can still have expectations. We can still figure out what is the child needing while keeping everybody safe, healthy, and ideally happy. So in that example, I don't know, just for fun, throw out the age of the child we're talking about in the restaurant. I'll play with it. Here's my improv training coming out.
Okay, I'm going to say 6.
Okay, they're 6 years old and we're in the restaurant and they're starting to get whiny and upset and pulling on us and whatever. One of the things that it's so easy to miss is the power of touch and the power of validation. So, in a situation like that, and I realize not all kids love to be touched, use what feels right and don't use what doesn't. That's my
Hmm.
invitation to everyone. But for a child, this 6 year old that we just made up, they like touch. It's one of their love languages. So, something I can do is be intentional about letting them know that I see them, as in I see their emotional need, even though I continue to be engaged in the conversation. What that might look like is maybe I start squeezing their hand. Maybe I put my arm around them. If they are a snuggly 6 year old, I might say, hey, I'm noticing your body is moving a whole lot. Would you like to sit on my lap while I continue this
Hmm.
conversation? I'm being clear, I'm continuing the conversation. But here's something beautiful about the lap example. If I'm holding the child, I can give them gentle squeezes that are actually proprioceptive input. Say that 3 times fast. Proprioceptive input that signals safety to their body. And so often, we have to understand that it's a lack of felt safety that is driving the child to engage in bigger behavior. When we can help them feel emotionally safe through a little bit of eye contact, some validation, it might be also as simple as looking them in the eye for a second. The adults will probably understand, hang on for 1 second. They've got fully developed brains, and
Hmm.
they'll say, I get it, kids don't have impulse control.
Hmm.
But the child doesn't have that. But to be able to look the child in the eye and say, I see how much you want my attention. I love you so much. And I promise you, I'm going to be back with you. In the meantime, would it be more helpful if you sat on my lap? Would it help if we draw together? I can do that pretty mindlessly,
Hmm.
whatever it is, but just let the child know that you see them versus ignoring, I hope it stops or something. which is so easy to get into in adult conversations. I've been there. I get it.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. I'm just thinking I've done that where I've had one of them on my lap, and it does really help. I was just thinking when you were talking and giving the example, I was thinking maybe I would be putting my child on my lap and playing with her hair or something, so braiding or whatever, doing something that makes her feel seen without it being moving your conversation to that child. So that's really interesting. Let's discuss the use of positive language for negative behavior that you do in your book. I'll give you the negative. You phrase it in the positive so we can do an example. Stop hitting your brother.
Yes. So the brain doesn't work in negatives, right? It essentially takes out the negative word. The child hears, hit the brother. Okay, great. I can do that. I'm on it. Okay. Realistically, even adults' brains have trouble with negative language. Whatever you do, Robyn, right now, don't blink. Well, next thing you know, what I want to do more than anything is blink my eye, right? I want to start like fluttering here. So the brain doesn't work that way. We need to know, and we actually practice this in my coaching program too. We need to know what to say instead.
Mhm.
So what you might say instead is, and you might actually, I'm going to give two examples here, two different ways you can do this depending how much presence of mind you have at the moment, because I realize our frustration tolerance might be affecting our presence of mind.
Mhm.
If we are really feeling frustrated, we might have to be pretty literal. So, for example, gentle hands, or put your hands in your pockets.
Mhm. Mhm.
Something, tell them what to do with the hands, because if we say don't hit or stop hitting, all the hand wants to do is like, look at me, I'm a rebel, I'm going to hit. That's what the
Mhm.
tells us to do. But if we tell them hands in the pockets, sit on your hands, go lean against the wall, whatever it is, that tells them this is okay. This is a yes. The brain knows exactly what to do with that. And if someone's feeling just a little bit more empowered, just a little bit more playful, you could practice this ahead of time. When I say, I don't know, I'm making this up on the fly for what it's worth. When I say pencil body, what does it make you want to do?
Straight. Mhm.
I'm a pencil right now. I am totally straight. My hands are at my sides. I can practice that and make it fun and lighthearted, because sometimes all the child needs is an interruption in the pattern
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
start a new and better behavior. And whether
Yeah.
it's pencil body or hands at your sides, whatever it is, this feels accessible. Whereas
Mhm.
doing whatever, the brain has too much thinking to do to get it right in that moment.
This is so great. Thank you for that example. It's super helpful. I love that you use positive language even to proactively stop a negative recurring behavior, as you just described. Um, but you did one in your book that I thought was really interesting, where a child often is like ripping the buds off of a bush. And you use storytelling and personification to help deter the behavior in advance, like of going out there or like when you first went out there. Can you just explain how you do that as we're starting to walk into this story teaching aspect?
Yes, personification is a really, really, really powerful tool to use again with all humans, all ages,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly for little kids, because in the little kid world, everything is a toy, right? Like the remote
Mm,
control is a toy, the kitchen spoons are a toy, whatever it might be. If you can start to ascribe feelings to these inanimate objects,
mm-hmm.
kids start to see them as things worthy of being taken care of. So, for example, instead of going outside and, seeing the kids start to pull the flowers off the bush or whatever it might be, oh, do you see Rose outside today? She looks really happy. Look how she is just smiling through her blooms. Let's make sure to take really good care of her today. Whatever it might be.
Mm,
Suddenly, I care. She has feelings.
Hmm.
Now, does this get tricky developmentally? No, not at all. We're doing what kids' brains do anyway, because to them, everything's a baby, everything's
Hmm.
a toy, everything's a motorcycle, whatever it
Hmm.
might. We are simply working with their brain development in ways that are completely appropriate for how they're learning to help them care more about the stuff, whatever the stuff might be,
Hmm.
while also getting curious. I'm going to add this as a bonus item here, getting curious. Do I have this rule because it's a rule that I had when I was a kid? Or is this something that might actually offer some benefit? I'm going to say, generally speaking, let's take care of the plants, right?
Hmm.
But maybe if it's something else, I wonder if it really has to be a rule. Maybe this is
Hmm.
an opportunity to play and connect rather than be strict about something that I'm just passing forward from my family of origin story.
Oh, that's so important. I know that there are things that we want to fix from our previous, growing up experience. Sometimes it's not all or one, one thing. It's not all bad or all perfect, but there are things that we, want to change. And that's such a good question to ask ourselves. Can we talk a little bit about consequences? Because you say it's important to differentiate between a punitive consequence from an intentional calming activity that you might do when a child is feeling overwhelmed or in need of a break or in need of comforting. Can you give us an example of a time out versus a time in? For example, if you have a child hitting another child, or starting to experience emotional overwhelm, as you might call it. People may be thinking of them as tantrums. You talk about it as an emotional overwhelm. I think you call it emotional release. So can you give us an example of what a timeout is versus a time in so that we can hear the difference?
Yeah, for sure. And frankly, again, this is for all ages. This is one of the things that I love about brain science. It does not expire when the child reaches 12 or whatever magical age people pull out of the air. So, first of all, nomenclature is for simplicity. These
Hmm.
things can go by a whole lot of names. So, in the hitting example, a punitive feeling, time out, would be the adult freaks out because hitting's bad. We all
Hmm.
agree. Nobody wants hitting. But we let our anger drive the bus and we say, you essentially go away. I am shunning you. I am creating emotional disconnection so that you feel pain because of what you did. Now, this is a little bit problematic, first of all, because if we're sending the child away to be on their own, they're not getting the emotional dialogue that they need in order to actually learn from this opportunity. No child ever is sent to their room or sent to the corner or the naughty step or whatever and sits there and thinks, thanks. I needed that. I now see the error of my ways and I know exactly what to do next time. Thank you so much, wise and loving parent. Nobody does that, right? At any age. So that's different from connecting with the child. Well, actually, I'm going to back up. First of all, it's different from regulating our own nervous system to
Mm.
do what Dr. Ross Green says, all behavior is communication.
Yep.
What's my child communicating? I don't know what it is. I know I have to break up the fight. I can do that, but I can be curious about what drove my child to punches in the first place, as opposed to coming and talking to me or working it out themselves, whatever it may be. What I can do if I actually need to split up the children in this example. Hey, I'm noticing how angry everybody is right now. Do you need a second to cool off? Let's figure out what that looks like. And for some kids, it's going to be give me a minute. For some adults, it's give me a minute. I know sometimes with my husband, I'm like, I need to go calm down for a second if we're having some sort of conflict because I want to be peaceful with you.
Mm.
That sometimes is the best thing I can do relationally, but that's very different from one of us saying to the other, even as an adult, get away from me. Ouch, right? That would
Yes.
not land well relationally. It would not be a healthy marriage if every time there were big conflict, I was like, I'm going to the bedroom and I'm not going to come out, or you're not going to come out until you're ready to behave better. It
Mm.
just doesn't work for adults. Why would we think it would work for children? So sometimes space can be healthy if it actually lands peacefully for the child so that they can calm themselves down.
Mm.
But it can't feel punitive, because then it feels like, man, not only do I feel the guilt and the shame of having lost my presence of mind, I'll just call it that, but additionally, I'm now being punished for being unable to control my emotions. And I feel helpless. I feel abandoned. I feel just icky on every level, because now I'm sent away and shunned on top of everything else. The alternative to that, which lands better for virtually every human on the planet, is start with emotional validation. Oh, I see how upset you are right now. Let's add in that extra layer that we talked about a minute ago. Hands in the pockets, okay? Let's do pencil body for a second. We're going to work this out. Let's give the child some reassurance that this will pass. Yeah, it's super frustrating. I can see why you were mad at your brother. Or, I don't know why you were mad at your brother, but you make sense. It is okay to be angry.
Mm.
Now, here's the big shift that I'm going to make from what a lot of people are tempted to do. I see that you were angry, but it's not okay to hit. It lands as shame, shame, shame. This is not a teaching moment. I see how angry you were. You make sense. Let's find a way to help your body feel safe, and we will work through this together. And then the big shift is we then spend extra time in that co-regulation space of, I'm going to let you borrow my nervous system, provided that I've been able to regulate my own nervous system. I might need a minute, and that's okay too. But if I can regulate my own nervous system, I can sit there, I can hug the child, I can give them proprioceptive input, I can maybe read a quick book, maybe I can draw with them, maybe I can go kick a soccer ball with them, whatever it is. But here's the thing, I'm not letting it go forever. That would not be helpful to the child. My job then, as the emotionally mature, responsible, loving adult who does actually want to create emotional safety with learning, and I want my kids to learn better behaviors so they don't have to duke it out every time, is to follow up and then add things like, hey, earlier today, I noticed how mad you were at your brother.
Mm.
Tell me about what was going on for you. And then you have a child who's regulated. They are more likely to be able to access the storytelling part of their brain, the hippocampus, where they will share their side of the story. And at that point, great. Thank you so much for telling me. I really appreciate you trusting me with this. And granted, we all agree that hitting hurts, so we need to find another path forward. So let's talk about some ways that you can communicate your anger going forward, where you will feel heard, you will get your needs met, and yet your brother isn't going to get hit in the face or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Let's practice that. You will have to adjust this up or down depending on their emotional and developmental readiness, but it needs to be a calm conversation based on connection and mutual trust rather than an in the moment mutual freak out, because that doesn't actually solve problems long term. And some
Mm-hmm.
people, I'm going to proactively say this because I think it merits naming, they'll be like, I don't have time for all that. I get it. And I'm going to say you probably don't have time either to keep repeating the cycle every 2 hours, 2 days, whatever it may be. Do it a few times really well. And what if the problem just goes away then? Because at that
Mm.
point, your kid will have more tools because they felt safe to learn from you in that tricky process.
Mm. It's so beautifully said. And what a great way of just leading us down this path. I think that when we're really hearing what you're saying, that this is not something that we have to do every time because it will dissipate over time. And I keep thinking that, while you're having this conversation and you're practicing strategies, you're discussing strategies, that perhaps that will come to mind the next time they're in that frustrating moment, or maybe catching themselves before they get to that degree, because you're talking to them about understanding their body and how do they know when they're upset and they're kind of going down that path or up anger mountain, as Dr. Lynn Kenny says. If you're going up anger mountain, can we catch ourselves before we get to the peak and then we just lose our mind? So thank you for that. That's super helpful. I want to get to story teaching before we end this. And this is where your talent really shines as a storyteller. What is story teaching and what is the most important component of story teaching so that it works?
Yeah, so every human on the planet, you, me, and everybody else, have a part of our brain called the hippocampus. It is where we recall at a subconscious level literally everything that's ever happened to us. We have pictures in our minds. Now, I could get into extrinsic versus intrinsic memory. That's going to be a whole other conversation. But if I ask you, you know, tell me about something beautiful that you saw once in your life, I am guessing that you have a picture come to mind. Oh, it was this sunset. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it was this puppy. Oh, it was this whatever it might have been. But you actually have a visual memory of it. For some people, it might be an auditory memory or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
might be. It was this piece of music. And I remember how it made me feel. So, knowing that every brain on the planet works through this storytelling part of our existence, we have to keep in mind that kids and adults learn best through stories more than we would ever learn through any of our best parenting TED Talks, right? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
child, sit down. I'm going to give you the best picture you ever heard in one ear and out the other, right? Kids will remember how we made them feel. And the more they can picture details of what we are telling them, the more likely it is to stick so that we don't have to keep repeating ourselves over and over and over. So going back to an example that we talked briefly about earlier in this conversation, let's talk about, this is the kid who every single day is picking flowers off the front bush. It's not a massive problem, but it's annoying. You don't want them to keep doing that. This might turn into a story of once upon a time there was a rose bush and her name was alligator. I just made that super weird because it's more memorable. It wasn't Rose, it was whatever. But alligator actually had a very tender heart, and she loved it when people were gentle with her. When they were gentle with her, she felt safe to bloom. And when people plucked her flowers, a little part of her got deeply sad every time because she knew how much work went into being able to bloom and how much she had to be able to trust those around her so that she felt able to show her true beauty and feel safe in the world. Well, suddenly, this is a whole different emotional experience for the child, right? They're going to look at that bush and be like, if it weren't for your thorns, I would hug you right now. So, granted, not every parent or caregiver can come up with a full story in the moment. And good news, you don't have to. I have lots of examples in the
Yeah.
book. I have lots of practice in my coaching program. We do this as a practice for ourselves. But what we can do that is super accessible to every single one of us is, hey, you remember that TV show we saw where this happened? Let's talk about how that probably felt for that character. Do you remember this book that we read where Joey got mad and then Joey did this versus that? These stories also stick in our brains, so we don't have to be hugely creative. We can pull from real life. And here's the beauty of it. We can use it proactively, retroactively, and in the moment. So
Mm.
proactively, I know we're going to our neighbor's house and they have that rose bush. Hey, once upon a time, child hasn't even been there yet, but we are setting them up to succeed when they might be faced with temptation over at the
Mm-hmm.
neighbor's house. We can use it retroactively. Hey, earlier today, not in a shaming way, but just simply as helping them understand the impact of behavior in a way that will help them learn and grow, as opposed to being shamed by, can't believe you did, whatever. And then we can also, in the moment, say sometimes a single word to help remind our children of this is a story you've heard, and you can bring back the whole emotional experience really simply. So Robyn, let's play with this for a second. Who's alligator?
Oh, alligator is the name of the rose bush.
Yeah, you remember that because you pictured it. If you were a child, I could say, hey, remember to be kind to alligator in the moment. Oh, right, she has feelings. I'm going to be gentle.
Mm,
Brains are fascinating, and we have so many opportunities to connect with kids, not to mention they love stories, right? We all do. But if we can do this in a way that's emotionally accessible, they feel so incredibly safe with us that they say,
hmm
I want to learn from you because you make me feel safe and you create emotional anchors that are memorable because I really and truly do want to do so, so well for you, my parent. I love you and I want to be a good kid for you.
Mm. I know you can use stories from your past, and sometimes that makes children or teens groan a little bit. Although I think that they often really do like hearing our stories, and sometimes they don't say it in the moment, like, wow, I feel so much better hearing about what happened in your past. But there have been many times with my teens that I've heard them telling the story to a friend of theirs as an illustration of, oh, my mom went through that too. Hey, mom, can you talk to her about what happened? And they are part of the storytelling experience. So it does really get anchored in the moment, but also in their mind and in their experience. And it gets to the point where you think, oh, this may be something that they retell over and over again throughout their lives. You're handing down those stories. I know that you did that with your mom and the Albert story with the fingers that she would always make Albert into your two fingers, and she would walk along walk along, and then you guys used Albert and then became the Alberts and garlic Albert and these are interesting names, and cupcake and whatever, and they went on adventures. I love the idea that it's handed down like that. I love the storytelling, and I do encourage everybody who's listening to look at the book. And the whole last chapter is all of Sarah's stories. Getting your kids to brush their teeth, and especially if they're scared of brushing their teeth, and there's all kinds of frustrating issues. I was like, oh, I need some ones for teenagers and too many screens, because I feel like that's when I'm going to ask you about. We will have Sarah back on so that she can talk to us more about the story teaching. I really wanted there to be an overriding feeling today of her complete, peaceful discipline. But we have to have you back on to do more story teaching, because you are just so gifted at that. Can you give us your top tip? What do you hope people come away with after listening to this podcast or reading your book so that they can apply it in their own lives?
Yeah, I hope it's actually a feeling more than it's a tip. I hope you feel a little bit softer, a little bit more grounded. I hope you realize how much you deserve connection, every bit as much as the children in your life deserve connection. And if you somehow had this belief growing up that you may still be perpetuating onto your family, that kids need to feel pain in order to learn, I just ask that you be invited. I ask that you be open to the idea to what if you actually needed a level of emotional safety that you now have the power to create with your children to really just thrive together. You deserve to feel joy just like they do.
Mm. And give us the resource of the week. Where can we go to get more information about you, your book, and the work you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah, middle initial R, last name Moore. I include the middle initial R because there are like a billion Sarah Moores in the world, and it is what
But
it is.
nobody like you.
Thank you. Yeah, so my website is dandelionseeds.com. There is a hyphen. It's dandelion-seeds.com. There you will see my book, Peaceful Discipline, which you can buy anywhere you buy books. you will see my fully accredited parent coaching and parent coaching certification programs. So if you want to change the lives around you, you can become certified as a parenting coach. Additionally, you can just come for support if you need it. I have a 3-course series called Showing Up Stronger if you want to get started in this work. I have tons of mini courses and just different levels of support depending where you are in your journey right now. I'm Dandelion Seeds Positive Living on Instagram, Dandelion Seeds Positive Parenting, basically everywhere else. And let me know what questions you have. I'm here to serve. This is not the Sarah Show. I just genuinely want other people to thrive.
Oh, this is so good. I just want to thank you for being on the show today and sharing all of these great methods and just the whole concept of parenting your child in this different way. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You are a gift.
Well, I've got my takeaways, and sweet friends, I know you have yours. So let's discuss them. You can go to the Dr. Robyn Silverman page, or we can look at Instagram. We're going to be going back and forth with Sarah on all the social media. Every single thing that she said, we're going to have in the show notes. So do not worry if you're running around. We got you. We got the links. Everything will be up there. And if you love this podcast like I did, I hope you'll go up to iTunes and rate and review it so other people can learn about Sarah, her outstanding solutions, and use them in their own homes. I truly appreciate it. That's all the time we have for today, my fellow parents, leaders, and educators. Thank you so much for tuning in to How to Talk to Kids About Anything. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, you can go to drrobynsilverman.com. And please remember, even on the days when you fall short, you've got this. You're here and you're getting the information and you need. I know it's not easy, but never forget there's typically a tomorrow. And we know that parenting is typically the ultimate do-over. I see you and I'm right there with you. And as there are moments when we doubt our know-how, our choices, and our sweet, sweet sanity, please know you are 10 times the parent you think you are. Until next time, this is Dr. Robyn Silverman with How to Talk to Kids About Anything. Please tune in again and keep connecting through conversation. See you next week.
You've been listening to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com.